Hello there, welcome to We Are Crafted in His Image. I'm here today with a Technique Tuesday. We are going through the alphabet and we're on to the letter E, and of course E, I had to do embossing because that is like the epitome of paper crafting techniques is embossing. Now if you're not sure what embossing is, there's embossing basically means the piece of paper will have a raised surface on it. Like you can, I don't know, you obviously can't feel, I don't know if you can tell, but this one here has been embossed here, and then this has also been embossed. Like I can feel it. But there's two different types of embossing. This one is called, I believe it's called dry embossing, which I'm not really sure why. I would call it more of an impression embossing or a mold embossing, because to do this type you actually have some sort of a mold or something that the paper is then molded to. In this case it's put in here and then run through the Big Shot, and it squishes it all together, and the paper ends up with this design on the paper. This one on the other hand is done by heat embossing, where you use a sticky ink, you add a powder, and then you heat it up and the powder melts and it leaves a raised surface behind. So pretty basic for most of us paper crafters. We know these things, but for those who are new, that is basically what embossing is all about. So I'm going to show you today how to make this card here, and we're going to start with the background. So what I wanted to do is, this is actually called an emboss resist technique as well. So you get embossing, but you also get the emboss resist. Now oftentimes when we emboss with like black or gold, that's what color you're going to see, but here I'm going to emboss with clear, and then the background paper is going to show through. So let's start by making that background. Get my piece of paper here, and if you've watched many of my videos, I've done this technique many times before, and I wanted just kind of a masculine, rough, dirty, grungy kind of a look for my background. And so to do that, I grabbed the piece of, I don't know what you call this, acetate off of my stamp set here, and I'm going to start with one color. When I did it the first time, I actually did a couple of colors, and I didn't get as nice of a distinction in the colors. They kind of, some of them bled together. So I'm going to do this one or two colors at a time. I'll probably do the blue. I'm trying to find what I do with all my inks. There they are. Now you can apply the color one of two ways. You can apply it directly from the ink, or you can get the markers out and use the markers. I do find that I get a little bit better coverage, a little bit deeper color if I use the ink pads. However, it's limited on how you, in fact I'm going to try it this way, hold on. There we go. Trying to get a little bit more color on there, like that, instead of just these little tiny corners. And then what I'm going to do now is just spritz this with some water. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind when you do this next step, you don't want to necessarily rub on the paper, especially not with your fingernails, and I'll show you why in a second. So I'm just going to flip this over, put it on here, and I'm going to gently move the color around. Now, if you do rub, which is okay to do, but you'll just be aware of what it's going to end up looking like. On this one, if you can see those lines going through there, that was from me rubbing my hand back and forth to spread the color around. It gave these like little trail marks. So if you don't want those trail marks, do this gently. And then I'm going to lift this up, and you see there's still color on here. So I'm going to add some more color in a few other areas. And then I want to let this dry. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in, I have a porcelain tile here, and I'm going to set this on here, and I'm going to use my heat tool and dry that a little bit. Our heat tool actually has two settings on it, 1 and 2. The first setting is actually a lower setting, and it is specifically for drying your paper. So you will find that if you dry it manually like this, you'll get more water lines in your design, whereas if you just let it naturally dry, you won't get as many of the distinct edges. There we go. Try not to get my hand in there. This takes a minute or two. Can you see how this area here is changing color? That's because I'm drying it manually. I'm drying it faster. If I had let that dry naturally, it wouldn't have changed those colors quite as much. But that's okay, I'm actually wanting some differences in color. And then this still has some ink on here. I'm actually going to use this instead of my white piece. And I'm just going to come in and add a few more, some dots of this color here and there. And the cool thing with this technique is you can keep adding color on top of color on top of color. I'm going to wipe off the blue. And now let's add some gray. And the gray I'm going to use Smoky Slate. And I think I am going to do it this way, just by touching in a few areas to give me some color. There we go. That worked much better. Water bottle. Get some water on there. And now I'm going to add some gray splotches. Let's see, this looks good. And part of the benefit of doing each color individually is then the colors don't blend together quite as much. If I had done them both at the same time, then the blue and the gray may have just turned into one shade of gray instead of having the blue separate. There we go. Adding some color here and there. There we go. Oh yeah, I like that. And again, I want to dry this, so I'm going to go ahead and run my heat tool. I'm going to go ahead and pause and come back. Okay, that layer's dry. I'm going to go ahead and add, I still have some color on here, so I'm going to add a few more, just little dots of that color, some splotches. And now I'm going to go ahead and rinse this off. And now for our last color, which is going to be Pecan Pie. Get a little bit of a rusty brown color going in here. Okay, spritz. And I am using regular, just basic white cardstock. I'm not using watercolor paper on this. Watercolor paper would work as well, but I'm just using our regular white. There we go. Whoops. Oh, I love how this looks. It's so cool. Okay, and that is going to be pretty much, I want to pull some of the color down here a little bit. That is that. And I'm going to let this dry. And you want to make sure it is totally 100% dry before you go on to the next step in doing the embossing. So, I actually have one already finished. I'm going to set this aside though. There we go. Oh. And now back to our project. This is the one that I did earlier. You see this was my back side and I didn't like it, so then I came back and did another one. And what we're going to do now is our embossing on it. So I am going to use my Stamparatus on mine. If you don't have one, this can be done with just a regular block. You just have to be able to line it up. I have my Stamparatus. I know we don't carry this anymore, but for those of you who do have it, I wanted to show you a fun technique on how to use it. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out. I don't need this one. I need to set this in here. And I'm going to start with the birthday. So we need birthday and we will need happy. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that out and get it ready. So my birthday is going to go down here at the bottom. And you can decide which side you like better. This way or this way. I think I like this side better. So I'm going to put my birthday right down here. And go ahead and close this in on it. And I need... I'm going to grab my magnets because my paper is very wonky in shape because it's very distorted from being wet. So I want to kind of make sure it stays put. Okay, so to do heat embossing, you need Versamark ink. Versamark ink is a clear sticky ink. Just gonna pat that on there. I really want to make sure it's well inked. In fact, I might even do this twice. There we go. Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and heat emboss this. Move this out of the way, make it a little bit easier. And pull in, this is clear embossing powder. I'm going to sprinkle it where I stamped, and because that ink is very sticky, the powder is going to stick to it and not anywhere else, hopefully. Yay! Now that's the reason you want to make sure this is really, really dry before you do this technique. Otherwise your powder is going to stick to any of your wet areas, and you don't want that. You want it to be just on your stamping. Now I prefer to heat emboss mine from the underside, so let's see if you can see this as it embosses. It's kind of hard to do. I may have to change my focus so you guys can see it. I prefer to do it from underneath so that my heat tool doesn't blow any loose particles away. Can you see that in there at all? I love heat embossing with gold and silver because it's like magic when it melts. Okay, now you do not want to overheat. If you overheat it, it will melt into the paper, and then the next technique is not going to actually work. So I don't know if you can see that on there. You can just barely see the word happy or the birthday on there. Now we're going to go and do the happy. So scoot that out of the way. Bring this back in. And this is the part that I like about the Stamparatus, is being able to do this next step. Let's see. Oh, I'm going to have to put that there, I think. And over here. So, I do not need the birthday. Move that out of the way. I need happy. I'm going to line the happy up right above the word birthday. And again, if you don't have a Stamparatus, you can just do this with a block and just line it up. These are clear, so they're not too difficult to line up. But since I have this, what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to take this out and I'm going to bring it down to 3 slots. Let's see. That was 1, 2, so I'm taking it down 2 slots. And I'm going to pick it up like that. And then, making sure this is going to stay put. There we go. Ink up my happy. I'm going to do it once. Put that back down, make sure it's still in the corner. Now I'm going to lift this up and go up 1 slot. I'm going to ink it up again. Fix my paper, put it back in that middle, or back in the corner I should say. And I know you cannot see what I inked at all. I can only see it if I have the light in just the right area. Whoops. And up 1 more notch. Is that magnet going to be in the way? I think it is. I'm going to have to move the magnet. There we go. And come on, stay down. Down we go. Now I have happy, 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 and they are lined up perfectly. Okay, move that out of the way. Bring this one in. Get my powder. Okay, and this time I'm going to put the camera in autofocus so I can come up a little higher, and hopefully it'll stay in focus for you. And now I'm going to heat it. And you do want to try to keep your fingers out of the way. There we go. Can you see that in the camera at all? Can you see it changing? I'm focused on watching what I'm doing so that I don't overheat any area. So I can't look at the camera while I'm doing it. I'm hoping it's showing up there. Okay, I believe everything is melted. Oh wait, no, I missed this corner of the H. Oh, there's no ink in that spot. Hot, hot, hot. All right, let that cool for a second. Whoops. And then comes the magical part. This is so fun. I don't have a scrap piece handy. Yes, I do. Some paper from another project. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get out Night of Navy. And this is where it's called Emboss Resist. Where I have embossed, it is going to resist. Thought I felt some loose stuff there. It's going to resist the Night of Navy ink. So I'm going to grab my Night of Navy here, and I don't even care if it is really thick. And I'm just going to go right over top. Of those letters. And the reason I'm not worried about if that is all yucky, it's not going to show, it's going to be hidden underneath our other embossed panel. But isn't that cool how all of a sudden those letters just pop? They just come right out. And that background pattern shows through the letters. And you can cover this as much as you want. My original idea was to have the whole thing be the dark navy, but then I realized I kind of like some of that background pattern showing through at the edges especially. So then I was just focusing all of my color around the words and letting the edges feather out a little bit. Okay, and then once you're finished with that, I do want to take my piece here and make sure I'm over far enough. Yep. What I'm going to do now is actually take that paper towel I was using earlier. Where did it go? Here it is. And just rub over top of this, and it'll get rid of some of that excess ink that's on top of your embossing powder or your embossed words. There we go, see? And that piece is ready to go. So then the next thing we're going to do is the dry embossing. And to do that, I wanted to show you a couple of different, well, first off, I'll show you how to emboss it. It's pretty simple. You've got your cut and emboss tool here. Oh, let me put this back in. Well, we'll leave it like that for now. And this is the sandwich for embossing. It is very simple. You just need the base piece, number one. You need, where to go? Your embossing folder, and then you put your paper in there. Now this is a Stampin' Up! Embossing folder. If you buy folders from other companies, all of them have a different thickness, and so with the different thicknesses you have to change out your sandwich according to how thick. If it's a very thin one of these, you will need to add your base, the other base plate number 2 onto this. But for these particular ones, you just need it like this. And then this is our embossing like panel pack, or I don't know what you call this thing. It's number 4. There you go. So number 1, your embossing folder with your paper in it, and number 4, and then you run it through the machine. When you do an embossing folder, you always want to have the hinge side going through the machine first, so that the pressure, it evens out the pressure. If you put it through this way, it will end up breaking this after a while. So you always want to have it so that this side or this direction so that it's on the edge. So either like this or like this is the best way to do it. And there you have. See, I've got my panel has the impressions on it. And oof, we're going to color this, And I wanted to show you on this one here, I colored before I ran it through the Big Shot. So before I embossed it, I did the coloring on it. But on this one, I did the coloring afterwards. And the difference is that the raised areas will pick up more of the color if you do it afterwards, as opposed to when you do it beforehand. So that's what I'm going to do on this one here. And I need, what color do I need? I want the gray, smoky slate, and I'm just going to randomly add, my smoky slate has not been re-inked in a while, so it is, I really need to re-ink it here pretty soon. I don't have to tap off on it as much right now because it's not super inky. However, my pumpkin pie or pecan pie is a whole nother story. That one I definitely have to tap that one off a bit. That one is very inky. Okay, so just a couple of random splotches of that gray on there, the smoky slate. And then I'm going to come in with pecan pie. And like I said, this one is very inky. So I want to pull some of that color off before I run it on here. And I wanted this to kind of give it almost a rusty look. Grungy. There we go. And if you want some areas with a little more color, there we go. There is our panel. Actually, I think I'm going to use the gray a little bit more on the gray. Perfect. And now I'm going to take this and go ahead and start assembling. Where did my, there it is. Put this back on manual focus so it doesn't keep going in and out on us. I'm going to go ahead and adhere this to my background piece. Now, one thing I wish I had done was when I laid out the birthday, I should have laid this on here first, because I really wanted the birthday to actually be just slightly closer to this panel than it is, but that's okay. Get that on there. And then we have some sparkly ribbon. I wasn't sure if this was too sparkly for a manly, masculine type card, but I liked how the ends of it splay out like this. And it almost reminds me of wires, like electrical wires. So that's kind of what I wanted for the knot on here. So to put that on, I'm actually going to go ahead and put adhesive across the bottom and the top, all the way across both. I'm going to cut my ribbon just slightly longer than the width of my, or the length of my card. And then I'm going to just take this and wrap it around the back. Oh, I could have made that much shorter. And then wrap this around the back as well. And then what I like to do is go back over that with a little more adhesive, just to make sure it's going to stick. And then because my paper is very warped, I'm going to use much more adhesive than I normally would use to adhere this to my card panel. So here is my half sheet. It has a score line there. I'm going to put this on the front with an even border going around. Push that down. Go ahead and fold this. And then I come in here and tie my ribbon, my little knot. No need for a fancy bow, we're just going to do a little knot here. Cut, and then I'm going to purposely take my finger and pull that apart. And this side I think needs to be a little bit shorter. And pull that apart as well. There we go. So there's that. Now we need to do the inside, and I was thinking plain white didn't quite go. We need to add a little bit more grungy to it. So I'll pull my scrap back in here, and let's just a few little areas around the edges. You don't want this very dark because you want to be able to write in it, but a few random darker spots around the edges. Let's get out the pecan pie. Oh my word, you should see off screen there's like stuff everywhere around my edges here. I can barely move. Yeah, that is a very, very, very inky. I'm gonna go over and this way. I do love this color though. There we go. Maybe. Oh, I like that. I like some of the spots being a little darker than others. There we go. We have some grungy looking paper to go inside our card. Move that out of the way. Where'd my adhesive go? And inside we go. And there we have our finished E is for embossing. And I did a masculine card. I don't do masculine very often. But there you have it. Even that I ended up adding sparkle to it. But you know, hey, like I said, I really thought this kind of looked like electric wires. So there, we have our finished E is for embossing technique. I hope you enjoyed this, and until next time, God's love and blessings to you. Bye!